Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast 5 Minute Frights, wherein, give or take 5 minutes, we'll try to share something creepy, kooky, mysterious, spooky, something fun and frightful that you can add to your to-watch queue as we all get ready for Halloween season. My name is Bernie Gonzalez, and on this episode, we're joined by Joshua Pruett at Zombie TARDIS. He's worked with Crunchyroll, Lego, Disney, DreamWorks, Netflix, Nickelodeon, Paramount, and we're talking about one of Josh's favorite horror movies, From Dusk Til Dawn. Also joining us on this episode, we have fellow fan and also previous guest, Nick Diak. Nick is a writer, pop culture scholar, convention speaker, fellow podcaster. You can check out his website, nickdiak.com. All right, let's get into it.
Terrifying evil has been unleashed. Now, 5 strangers are our only hope to stop it. This Friday, the showdown is on. Oh, yeah! From Dusk Till Dawn, rated R.
From Dusk Till Dawn is fucking amazing. When it came out, I was still in high school. I had very conservative parents, and so I didn't tell them that I went and saw this movie and made my friends mad because we were all supposed to go. And I chickened out. So I came back around to this movie. It's an all-timer for me. You've got Tarantino writing some of the most fun monologues, the most wonderful scene-chewing stuff, not just for him, but for everybody, for Harvey Keitel, for all these fucking characters. And he had written this for, I think, Bob Kurtzman, had paid him to develop his story.
Interesting.
And
okay.
so this was like pre-Reservoir Dogs, post-Reservoir Dogs, and apparently he had pulled the Samuel L. Jackson speech out of this movie at one point and put it in pulp. And so one of the things that happened is as he was coming up and befriending Robert and they started talking about maybe collaborating, one of the things I had read about was he was like, God, we just have to make this movie because I'm going to keep pilfering stuff from this movie. Again, it's emotional at times. You've got a brother relationship. You've got father, son, and daughter relationship. And, Rodriguez on action coming off Desperado, at the height of his powers, he didn't have to write the story. Quentin already had the story all figured out. Robert could get in there and just shoot the shit out of this movie. It's got tons of both of their personality in it. It is a hugely entertaining. So I've talked about this before. I think entertainment for me is all these things. It's cross-genre. Popcorn movie, and it's emotional, and it's violent. It's a fucking roller coaster. It's got DNA from Evil Dead 2, this movie. This is Rodriguez referencing Sam and, getting back to some of his core DNA. So I think that, and it's so funny because it's barely a vampire movie. It's a monster movie. And the monsters happen to be vampires. And they're gross and gnarly and don't sparkle.
I don't know if you'll recall this, but when we did the MST3K episode a while back, we might have brought up Dusk Till Dawn, but we were talking about your contribution to MST3K with Beast of Hollow Mountain and how both that and Dusk Till Dawn are they start out as one particular style of movie.
One thing. Yeah.
And then halfway through the movie or 3/4 of the movie, it just turns upside down and turns into a completely different film. Both start off as Westerns, one a Western drama and the other one a Western caper. And then one turns into a T-Rex movie and the other one into a vampire monster film. But is that one of the, I'm going to ask you.
Only one of them has a crotch gun, but we will not tell you which.
Oh yeah, only one of them has Savini and a crotch gun. That's very true.
Is that kind of, you're talking about, genres being very, I say malleable. I do like genres a little bit because I like categorizing them, but I like it where, they're malleable and they turn into something else. But I got to ask, since you do like Dusk Till Dawn, and it is 2 different types of movies seamlessly slapped together, is that something that you really like in movies? And that's something when you did Beast of Hollow Mountain that you brought to it when you were writing for that at all?
I'm not sure that I was aware of it, but I will say, because I think it's a good question. It is something that I am so drawn to. And I didn't, they kind of gave me Beast at Hollow Mountain. I didn't get to pick. They're like, oh, you're going to work on this one. But it's interesting that you kind of point that out because, it's Army of Darkness and Buckaroo Banzai are kind of my top 2. And they are old timers forever and ever and ever. They're not even on the list. They're separate. They float in the ephemera at the top of my top 5 list of all time. They are part of Josh's DNA. But yeah, Alan Moore, I think years ago in an interview talked about, genre being artificial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, yeah, it's helpful for us to be able to organize these things. But I think that people who are maybe less thoughtful and aren't coming at these things from a point of view of love and appreciation, it's an easy way for them to diminish, put things in a box. And I think that, over time, I've discovered that so much of my favorite things are all of it. That's what life is. I remember always really struggling. People would talk about film criticism or talk about this movie's really important or this and this and that. And I was like, oh, it's another drama. It's another important movie. And I'm somebody who really believes like the most artificial of genres are like dramas, because that's also not real life. That is also an overextension of one kind of experience. The world that we all live in is horrifying comedic almost on an hourly basis. So I think that that's one of the things I think I'm drawn to about genre in general, horror movies and monster movies, all this shit, is because I think it's more realistic. That's closer to the world that I live in and was born in and was raised in than something that's supposed to feel important or significant. I've never lived in that place. But, I've been scared and terrified, and I've been happy and sad, and I've made connections and loved and have loved. And I think that's why I like genre, is because that's closer to real life for me. I can relate to it.
I think you might share that with Robert Rodriguez, Josh, because there's something when he makes his passion projects, not like the movies that he necessarily does for the studio, which, he hasn't
his personal work.
Yeah. And even like movies like The Faculty, which I would probably argue would be more of a studio movie for him. He still combined horror, sci-fi, and John Hughes. And because in his mind, he's like, well, why can't they just be on the same spectrum? Why can't we just play around with all of these things in the same way that Carpenter, as we've talked about in Big Trouble in Little China, mysticism, action, kung fu, comedy, put it all together? Okay, well, that's Carpenter. I'm sure Rodriguez is looking at Carpenter and saying, well, he did that, and I love him, so why can't I do that in From Dusk Till Dawn and make it as much of a buddy comedy, a vampire film, an action movie, a black comedy, a drama at times? It can be all of an ensemble piece, and it works.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I feel like it's only people who don't like it who is bothered by it. We think it's great, I remember I was talking to Rebecca McHenry, who directed Glorious, and we were talking about what are our favorite things, and she loves horror comedies. She just loves them, but is often being told that those are not the things that quote unquote are marketable. But God, they are some of the most fun movies just of all time.